Hey, good morning to the folks on the West Coast. Good afternoon to everybody on the East Coast and in Europe. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Zach Posner. I'm a co-founder and managing partner at the LegalTech Fund, and I am thrilled to be here with Gorkem today. Gorkem was one of our first investments, and it's been amazing to watch Qualytics go from an idea pitched over a cup of coffee, into kind of a leader in its space now. Gorkem, we have a thing before we get started. We want to get to know a little bit about you. So I guess a couple simple ones for you. Like, give us an interesting fact about Gorkem that people would not necessarily know if you didn't tell it to us.
That's a great question. There are two that I'm going to give you. One of them is, well, first of all, thank you for having me, Zach. It's always fun conversations with you and the legal tech team. If you have been on a Zoom with me, you will have noticed that there are some Legos in my background. I am a very avid Lego collector, and my wife is not letting me buy more, but we're ending up with Lego rooms. The second interesting fact for you is that I was one of the youngest recipients of a Fulbright scholarship. I was 15 years old when I got the Fulbright scholarship and started college. So I'm one of those.
While the latter is fascinating, I'm more concerned. I'm more interested in the Legos because I did not know this about you. I thought those were model car. Is it more cars or Legos or both?
They're model car Legos. So each of these are, I have it a little bit blurred, but each of these are massive sets that have working engines, working transmissions, everything.
Directionally, how many pieces in each one?
These ones are each about 4,000 to 5,000, but I have the big Titanic downstairs that is like about 11,000 pieces, if I'm not mistaken.
And these are more expensive than people realize, correct?
Yeah.
As a father
Very
of a
much so.
10-year-old and 12-year-old, we've certainly invested in some of these. We're not to that level yet, and you're scaring me a little bit. But anyway, all right, second question. If you are not doing exactly what you're doing, which we'll learn more about in a second, what would you be doing?
I wouldn't want to work at Lego. How about that? Designing Lego pieces. That would be fun.
Maybe this is a perfect bridge because I'm sure they have some data quality issues.
I bet they do.
When you got started, you pitched your high level concept. We looked at it and said, "Wow, there's there's clear needs for law firms that are going to have more and more data, and then there's also a broader regulatory compliance play that you're kind of chipping away at. Maybe if you want to give a little insight on your journey and what inspired you to found Qualytics."
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, I studied computer science. I went from surgical robotics to working at a massive health system for almost a decade and doing everything data, doing everything technology. Then I went on to co-found a couple companies that have grown quite a bit. And in every one of my stops, what I've seen is that sometimes I'm making bad decisions. Sometimes executives are making bad decisions because I'm looking at bad data.
Wait,
And that's not
so you've never just made a bad decision that didn't have to. It's only because of bad data. All your
exactly. Of
decisions are
course.
perfect. Okay.
No, but I mean, a lot of it gets attributed to the fact that I have to have muscle memory to say, oh, my CAC to LTV ratio cannot be X, or my media spend cannot be Y, or even to the point of, oh, patients should not be over 130 years old, or biological males should not be pregnant, right? Those are the kind of things that I have seen in my career. I'm not even going into the war stories that I could talk about for an hour, but what I've seen a lot is that I, at every stop, was doing a lot of work manually in order to address my data quality. And turns out I was not alone. I was not alone in this. 73% of business executives are unhappy with their data. 48% of executives accept that they have made one bad decisions based off of bad data in the last 6 months. That's almost half of executives accept that they have made a bad decision in the last 6 months. So that's, and I've faced this throughout my career, and started coming up with an idea that you remember from our coffee walks on how we could actually use machine learning to get ahead of the things, to be actually more proactive about data quality rather than reactive. That's the status quo, right? I like to call data quality expensive whack-a-mole. That's what we do as the status quo. And how do we not make it expensive whack-a-mole? And that's how Qualytics was born.
Well, you know, I remember when I learned about this, I introduced it to an advisor of ours who's now an advisor of yours. And, you know, this gentleman was the CTO of one of the world's largest private equity funds. And he had a theory that said, hey, like data quality is probably responsible for like half of the inefficiencies in our economy. You know, like, you know, when you start thinking about what happens when these decisions get made and then they get compounded on top of each other, it becomes you know, a much bigger problem than would meet.
There
You
are
know,
many examples of
we all
this.
see it on a micro level, right? We all get a spreadsheet that doesn't make sense every now and then, no matter what level you're at. But
But
like,
when you look at the macro level, IBM actually estimates that this is a 3 trillion a year problem to the U.S. economy. Gartner estimates that this is a $15 million per year per business problem. But that's not going into the disasters that happen. Zach, do you remember the Lyft snafu that happened a few months ago, like 6 months ago, where they fat fingered a number in their quarterly earnings reports? And you know, the stock went down, market cap got a little affected. That's data quality for you right there. Or the fact that a certain bank ends up paying hundreds of millions of dollars in fees because they don't have the right data controls in place, which is ultimately data quality again.
So zooming in a little bit, I guess, massive problem. I don't think anybody would. I'm assuming you've told this story in the tune of thousands of times in the last couple of years. Is anybody just like no? So I'm assuming people agree with you on the vision on the problem.
We have so it's interesting. It's amazing that a lot of global brands are still early in their data governance journeys. Of course, we have interacted with some companies that have done quite a bit about their data quality, their data governance, but not to the level of advanced automation in the mix.
Well,
right?
Yeah, and I guess I guess there are people that think it, but I was more trying to like just take that through saying, okay, how do you think about turning this into a product, or how did you think about turning this into a product?
Well,
Because something's
I
so big.
was so I was looking at, as a buyer, I was looking at the incumbents in the space. I was looking at some of the bigger companies like Informaticas and Colibras of the world, and tried their products and actually bought a competitor's product, actually used an open source solution. And I was, again, doing expensive whack-a-mole. That's where I saw the opportunity, right? The typical data quality picture waits for Zach comes and yells at Gorkem and says, this data is wrong, go fix it. What do? I do root cause analysis. I go figure out where things have gone wrong, maybe find the offending records. I may write a data quality rule if I have time to catch that specific issue going forward. I'm waiting for the next thing to break. Now, the idea that came to me and ultimately my co-founder, Eric, is how do we actually proactively generate data quality rules that are trained on a company's historic data? I don't want to write 5,000, 6,000 rules. I was at about 8,000 rules in my previous stop when I started realizing that I can automate this stuff. And we often talk to companies that have 100,000 rules in production that they're manually curating and managing. So you have to employ teams of people that are just sitting there and writing tests, writing rules. And is that a good use of their time? If you actually double down onto a data scientist's time, and the fact that a data scientist spends 80% of their time prepping data for their models, and that's your more expensive resource, that's not a scalable approach. Now, I think one of the waves that we're catching, Zach, and let's see if you agree with this, is that AI is our favorite two-letter word. AI is starting to get chief data officers more budgets. We're all interested in previously unknown insights. But if I feed my models bad data, I'm going to get bad outputs. So we're starting to see some even more oomph behind the enterprises making decisions off of this.
We're jumping ahead. Yeah, I wanted to ask you that too. I wanted to say, like, you talked about I remember this started with like a machine learning approach. Thumbs up, thumbs down helps to train a
Mhm.
model in some capacity. We've, you probably couldn't have launched this at a more exciting time with changes in technology and, the word AI that was invented in the 60s or 70s. But like, I don't know, but like, has this recent wave of large language models and things along those lines changed the way that you think about architecture, or is
To an
this still
extent,
okay?
to an extent, uh, if you feed your AI, pictures of three-legged dogs, what is your AI going to say? Dog should have three legs, right? The quality of the data matters significantly to the impact of AI. That being said, we're typically going after large enterprises, mid-market and up. And in mid-market, I would say there's more AI activity happening. Large
Okay.
enterprises are, by nature, they're slower to adopt, but they are starting to think, okay, I have to have my get my house in order. I have to have data governance in place so that I can enable the AI pieces that are going to come in the near future.
So to go back to like the micro level for a second, what
Yeah.
does an engagement with Qualytics look like when a company is, whether it's a mid market or whether it's one of these, top Fortune 100s that you guys work with? Like, what does that,
Yeah.
what are they calling you for? What does that process look like? What are some of the things you end up finding?
Yeah, typically, if we're going top down, we will meet a C-level executive who's going to say, "Yeah, my data is not good. I need help,"
Yeah.
and then we'll end up meeting the data teams. And from there, it's almost a little bit like PLG activities happening with enabling that champion, that is the person being yelled at, to do more with less. Right? That's ultimately the starting point. Parts of the data quality picture is you have to cross the chasm between data teams, engineering teams, and business teams that know their data the best. The subject matter experts who are not going to write code. They're your FP&A analysts that know the FP&A data the best. They know the rules that need to happen for that data, but they're not going to write code. So it's crossing the chasm. And when somebody starts interacting with us, we actually have a very tailored sort of journey in a proof of concept. We love doing proof of concepts. We love companies coming to us with some of the problems that they're facing, understanding the art of the possible, but then going through a 2 to 4 week journey where they're testing our product with their real world use cases. And I'll give you one example. One of the customers that came to us with the fact that they have 70,000 rules in production that they're managing with a pretty massive team. We saw 68,000 of the 70,000 rules automated on day one.
Wow.
It's a mind-blowing fact, right? So then people start thinking, okay, well, then there's also the maintenance piece of it, and then there are the previously unknown insights. So that becomes a really big value add on day one. It's the wow factor that
So you
happens
just
off.
you just instantly almost start putting things in a sandbox saying, this doesn't look right. This doesn't look right.
Exactly. That's
Okay.
exactly right. And then highlighting anomalies. But then people being it's machines working with humans is the key here. Human in the loop perspective is important. So when a human reviews an anomaly and says, "No, you know what, that's not right," retrain. We will retrain. We will learn. We will have supervised learning coming into the mix here. The secondary part of the data quality picture is that often there are about 50 common data quality rule types that are sometimes very complex concepts. For example, you may have an entity resolution issue. Let's say that you are tracking business names and you have the same company listed multiple ways: JP Morgan, Chase Bank, JP Morgan, Chase Bank, all coming as different names. People spell them differently. If you're doing your analytics on that data, resolving those entities to the real world entity they're associated with is a big problem. That there are companies associated with just that entity resolution, and that's just a rule type for us, one of the 50 that we do.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
enabling that business user to come in and play that role is very, very important. We're not just selling to the data teams. We're enabling the business users to co-own data quality.
And then, data is the new oil. what is, I'm assuming the volume, you're seeing volumes of data. I mean, what is it? Or is it almost like doubling every couple of years? Like what's happening here, and what do these trends look like? And are there any signs of it slowing down, or does this
Yeah,
just?
there's the global data creation is going to 10x in the next 10 years.
Yeah,
So it's going to explode, right? So right now we're generating 175 zettabytes, and that's expected to hit about 2,000 zettabytes by the year 2035. A zettabyte is a billion terabytes.
that's what I was about to ask you. I don't even know the terms.
It's just exploding. It's the hockey stick is there, right?
Yeah.
And how do you actually keep up with it, right? So the data governance, data quality, data cataloging, these pieces are exploding in tandem with
No,
the global data
I can't
creation.
even imagine how many things, how much my Apple Watch collects on a day-to-day basis,
Oh yeah, that
and
you
then,
know of.
yeah.
That's a whole other topic.
Exactly. Kind of definitely a little bit of a wave, people are realizing the enormity of the opportunity. We saw a couple of, a couple of different people focusing on this. I'm curious, like how your approach is a little bit different than others, or how you think about this compared to some of the
Yeah,
competition.
I mean, look, you can't be everything to everybody. And we are very much, our lane is mid to large enterprise. You have an established data team. You don't have to be using the modern data stack. You don't have to be using only Snowflake and Redshifts of the BigQueries of the world, Databricks of the world. You may have a SQL server, but you have billions of records and you have hundreds of people that are worried about that data. Then we're a great fit. We built the Ferrari of data quality. If you're a small company that has a cute little Snowflake instance, I'm not the fit for you, right? It's just too much, right? This is built for data quality, data governance teams to really manage data quality at scale. So
Gotcha.
that's what I think about. We're not an open source platform. We're not, we while we super serve engineers, you're not writing data quality rules as code. You can, but that's not our forte. Our forte is high usability for business users, common rule types, templating rules, automating a lot of the work. Let machines do 90% of the work that you need.
Awesome. So if people would like to learn how machines can do 90% of the work that they need, how should they get in touch with you? How can they learn a little bit more?
Come to our website, qualytics.ai. Hello at qualytics.ai. Drop us a note. Happy to talk to you about why data quality matters, how we, on average, automate 90% of the work that is needed for an enterprise. The numbers are very compelling. Happy to talk about it more.
Awesome. Well, I thank you for joining us today. I thank you for
Zach, I
being a
have
friend.
one question for you before we
Shoot.
wrap. What
Shoot.
gets you most excited about Qualytics?
The enormity of the opportunity, and the way that you guys are approaching it and the reaction that people have. We like to look a lot at engagement and some of the, when you guys are sending over numbers as to how your clients are feeling the impact almost
Mhm.
immediately. Like that
Yeah,
gets us. That's just it. And all the regulatory and compliance stuff coming down the pipe in and
absolutely.
around this stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
AI
you know,
compliance and data governance compliance is the next thing here, right? So
yeah.
drawing parallel to the legal world.
And having the opportunity to work with you.
Absolutely, my friend.
All
Thank
right.
you so much for having
Well,
me,
no,
Zach.
no, thank you, Gorkem. Thanks everybody for joining. Cheers.
Bye-bye.